Hi guys. So since I'm out right now, I just wanted to do a couple videos that are more on the nutrition behind your fitness and address a couple common questions that I have been getting from clients. Namely having to do with which types of diets work, what are macros, what should I be following if I'm doing your style workouts, boot camps, HIIT, strength training, etc. So a lot of people have a lot of misinformation due to no fault of their own. We all get all kinds of information from social media, from the internet that may or may not be scientifically backed or based. So just to address a couple little things like that, what are the best types of diets? Well, there's really no one wrong diet per se. So it's more to do with your particular preferences food-wise, things that you would be naturally more inclined to eat more often, that you find easy to attain and prepare. So all those factors have to be taken into consideration whenever you're choosing a diet. So that's why a lot of people gravitate toward one or another, say a high carb, low fat vegetarian diet. That might work for some people because of not just for ethical reasons. A lot of people choose to be vegan or vegetarian because of their compassion for animals. But it also is a health choice because that's an easy way for them to focus on getting more whole plant-based foods, which is great. If that works for you, that's wonderful. The same can be said for a high protein, high fat diet where we drastically reduce the amount of carbohydrates. If those foods are easy for you to prepare, those are things that you like, and the whole concept of taking out what is called a macronutrient, which I'll talk about in a second what that is that it gives you the opportunity to have to think less, calculate less, track your food less, because you're cutting out an entire food group. Therefore, you will naturally just eat less calories when you take out an entire food group out of what you normally eat every day. So a lot of those diets are based on actual science. Say the high protein, high fat diet. There are scientific reasons to do that type of diet. It's been proven effective for treating epilepsy, diabetes, other things like that, and reproducing or reducing insulin resistance that happens with someone who is pre-diabetic, and that just happens from eating a surplus of calories and carbohydrates and unhealthy high glycemic foods, which then cause the insulin resistance because your body just you stop producing the insulin, which reduces your blood sugar after eating and takes that sugar from your blood, puts it into various processes within your body, one of them being energy in the form of glycogen. It's converted and stored in your muscles for quick breakdown when you do longer endurance type exercises, or you're working, you're moving for a long period of time, and you don't get to eat. Your body will use that glycogen as its first source to fuel you when you can't eat or you're in between meals. So that is a natural process that's supposed to happen. What happens though is if we eat so much that we fill up our glycogen stores, which is partially in our liver, partially in our muscles, we fill all that up, and then we still have a really high amount of sugar from our blood that our body's like, now what do we do with this? That's when it turns into fat storage. So carbs aren't inherently bad, which the prevalence of this high protein, high fat diet, low carb diet has demonized carbs for a lot of people. So a lot of people just don't understand, what should I do, what should I not do, and this is almost more debilitating than if they would just listen to their own body and eat intuitively and, you know, try to eat whole foods, try to eat unprocessed foods, and don't think, is this evil? None of them are inherently wrong. So what happens is over time, someone overeats and they begin to store calories as fat. So just to rewind completely, so what is a calorie? A calorie is basically a unit of energy. So it's the energy needed to raise 1 gram of water 1 degree Celsius. So we know that energy produces an effect on something. So in this case, it's on the temperature of water. That's how it's measured. So we use those calories to fuel, just like gas in a car, our activity, our movements, digestion, all of our organs' functions, our brain thought processes, all of those are run from calories. And all calories eventually do, when they're going to be used for fuel, get broken down into glucose. All the macronutrients, proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, can be broken down to glucose if the body needs them for fuel. Okay, so, but your body prefers carbohydrates as its first source of fuel. The brain runs exclusively off of glucose, which is a carbohydrate, a simple form of a sugar. So any sugar that you eat, which includes starches, not just things that have table sugar in them, will get reduced down to a sugar, because that's the only way that your body can use it for fuel. So those are carbohydrates. Well, everything, but carbohydrates specifically are going to be turned into glucose. That's their main priority. Protein, on the other hand, is made up of amino acids, which we don't need to get into all that. Basically, what proteins do are they're used as building blocks for the entire body to repair, regenerate, renew, rebuild, all those activities that would require the blocks. So protein does that. It also forms enzymes and other things in our bodies that we use in our metabolism. What metabolism is all the body's entire processes put together are our metabolism. So everything that it does, whether it's your stomach breaking down food or your heart pumping blood and oxygen through, all of that is all part of our metabolism. It's not just digestion. So our skeletal muscle moving to move our bones when we perform our daily activities or run or anything like that, all of those things added together add up to our metabolism. So this unit of energy, the calorie, comes from these 3 macronutrient sources: fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. Like I said, your body likes to use carbohydrates for its first source. If you don't have enough carbohydrates or glycogen stored in your muscles, and fat is not quick enough, your body can't convert fat quick enough, your body will use a different source. If all you ate was protein, your body will probably at first break the protein down into a form of glucose, which is a more complicated process for your body, which is why your body likes carbohydrates more. Fats are also a little more complex, but your body will still use them generally before it'll use protein. Okay, so macronutrients, we have our 3 big hitters. So proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. So what do we choose in our diet? Well, ideally, our diet is going to contain a little bit of all of those. So all of those combined into our food will give us our total daily caloric intake. So we add all those together. if you're just following a general diet where you're not eliminating any one particular macronutrient. Each of those, so if you have 1 gram of carbohydrates, 1 gram of protein, or 1 gram of fat, they each have a calorie amount of energy that they produce, 1 gram. So 1 gram of proteins or carbohydrates will produce 4 calories worth of energy. 1 gram of fat produces more than 2 times that. So it's 9 grams for 1 gram of fat. 9 calories for 1 gram of fat. Okay, so they have different amounts. So you can obviously see, since a fat is double the amount of double the amount of calories in a carbohydrate or protein that we can eat, we'll have to eat less fat than proteins and carbohydrates. Because when we add all those, the 9 calories or 4 for each gram, for everything we eat in a day, you're going to be able to eat less fat than you will the other two. Okay, so in a very roundabout way, now we're to the main point, is that calories total are the things that you need to be worried about, not necessarily eliminating a macronutrient, which again, for people who are sedentary, people who don't want to track, initially starting a diet plan, if they do so choose, eliminating one source of macronutrient will kind of automatically reduce their calories, because they're eating less of one thing that they normally ate as a part of a square meal, and now that's gone. So naturally, they will tend to initially eat less. Usually, eventually what happens is your body's hunger signals will eventually make you take back up your amount of calories that you're eating, so that now you're overeating one particular macronutrient again, whereas before you had it a little more spaced out before you did an elimination diet of one or another. Okay, so why are high protein, high fat diets so popular? They are largely popular because they show rapid results, because when your body uses and stores carbohydrates, it has to be stored with a molecule or 2 of water. So when you store those in your body and your muscles, like the glycogen we talked about, it gets also stored with water. So you look fuller. That takes up space, that takes up volume. So when we reduce carbohydrates, after the first couple days where our body goes through all of our glycogen stores that are in our muscles, we lose volume, we lose water, because we don't have carbohydrates in our system, or very little, so we don't hold on to water the same as we did before. We just don't. So immediately within the first week, they look more shredded, they see, the weight loss on the scale, they think like, oh my gosh, I've lost 5-10 pounds in 1 week, this is amazing. The risk of the high fat, high protein diet though, is because now you're not storing water, the risk of dehydration is very real. And not only that, the excess protein now has to be converted into that glucose that your brain has to use, which is your body will use the protein and the fat, which is what we call the ketosis, like in the keto diet. So your body has to work a little harder to do that. Therefore, the thermic effect of food is a little bit higher, because your body has to work a little bit harder to break it down. However, long term and overall, your body, if you do this diet for years at a time, which some people have, and you're not conscious about your water intake, making sure you eat green leafy vegetables, making sure you get the right amount of fiber, there are side effects to these diets. There are side effects to the high carbohydrates one as well, but we'll get there. So because you aren't storing water, and the risk of dehydration is very real. If you're not very cognizant of that when you start this diet, this puts a lot of strain on your kidneys. And there are, that's the word I'm looking for, byproducts of the breakdown process of proteins for fuel, which are not that great. Your body doesn't like it. So that's why they'll say if you know you're in ketosis, if you have like a fruity, weird breath smell, that's because those are byproducts your body's trying to get rid of. And long term, unless you have a medical diagnosis that this diet is shown to be very effective with, which there are a couple, long term this diet shouldn't really be done, because certain adaptations happen in your body that aren't really, we haven't studied them long enough to know if they're beneficial. And those that will argue with it and say, the Inuits who live in very cold climates are adapted to eating meat and fat all the time. That's what they do. They live in, like say Alaska. There's not a lot of green year round, but studies have shown actually this group of people over time, their bodies have actually adapted to not go into ketosis, because ketosis itself long term it's a sort of a state of starvation. It's a alarm reaction that your body does. It's not something that's meant to be done forever and ever. So their bodies have actually adapted to not go into ketosis because of the byproducts, because of the strain and stress that takes on your body overall and your kidneys, etc. So that should be, kind of a warning sign to us. Probably, unless you are adapted to it, other than doing this for short bursts, for medical reasons, or to jumpstart a diet program, to show yourself quick results, so that you stay motivated. You do it for a few months, a few weeks, something like that. That's fine. And then you slowly add back in carbohydrates, and then your body, you realize, once you come out of that your body is now very efficient with, you don't need that many carbs. Your body is very efficient and will, uptake those. Your insulin, kicks in right away. So that is good, especially if you have become insulin resistant. If you're, to the latter half of overweight and obese, you will have those insulin resistant adaptations already going on in your body. So something like that is good for short term, to reset your body, get your body using your fuel properly again by jump starting it with a high protein, high fat diet, taking away its favorite source that it no longer uses well of fuel. So now to flip to the other side of that, a high carbohydrate diet that's kind of low in protein, low in fat, which can be vegetarian, although those tend to be kind of high carbohydrate, high fat. It's the protein that is kind of lacking here. And again, you take out a big macronutrient like that, you're going to take away a lot of the calories that it brings, because you're not eating the same amount. Eventually, once you adapt and you start you increase to the same volume of food you were eating before, now you're eating twice as many carbohydrates as you were before to satiate your hunger in the same way that protein used to. Again, you can do this very healthily if you're very cognizant of meeting all your macronutrient goals. So I don't personally, I used to subscribe. I've tried both. I've been on both ends of the spectrum, and now I have a much more balanced view. So I like to track my macros, and I like to do a percentage. So regardless of if I chose to be a vegetarian or eat meat or what have you, I want my macronutrients, proteins, fats, and carbohydrates to make up a certain percentage of what I eat every day. So I have goals in that sense. So I definitely recommend, when you're starting out on a diet program, number one, if you can, get a fitness tracker. you know, something that they're very cheap and inexpensive these days, and it's very worth your investment. A lot of phones already will do it. So you have your phone on you all the time. You can track your activity that way. It's not as accurate because it's not giving your heart rate throughout the day, so you don't see, you see an estimation of your calorie. But it's still a wonderful tool to keep you on track. So the biggest thing is you want your total calories to be less, down here, than your total activity. So you, in between here is this deficit. So you have to, this is what is so hard for people. You have to create just enough of a deficit in your calories that you will start using your own body fat as fuel, but not too much that your body freaks out and goes into starvation mode, and you get it starts overproducing the hormone ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone, because your body is no longer in homeostasis, and it doesn't like that. So your body will do everything it can to put you back in homeostasis. So for me, what has been successful is about a calorie deficit of about 400 to 300 calories per day. And also what is called undulating deficits. So throughout the week, it may be like 80% of the time I'll be in a deficit, and there may be 1 or 2 days where I take my calories back up to maintenance, back up to the amount that the activity that I did. So say I burned 2,500 calories that day, I'm gonna eat 2,500 calories that day, maybe even 100 calories over. Because what that will do is that'll calm your hunger system down. Your body will be like, okay, we're good, we're not starving, cool, I can relax. And then the next day when you go back into your deficit, your body is satiated from the day before. So you can do that for 3 or 4 days, stay in a deficit, take it back up for 1 day, 3 or 4 days, stay in a deficit, take it back up for 1 day, and that's a wonderful way that a lot of bodybuilders, athletes, bikini competitors, things like that, they will do that because you're actually working with your body so that your body remains calm and trusts you in what you're doing. So that's a wonderful way to do it. But the thing about this that is so hard for people is this small calorie deficit of anywhere from 200 to 400 calories. It's going to take longer to add up to a dramatic weight loss. So you are going to have to be a little more committed. The thing is, though, if you do it this way, it's not a giant deprivation situation. You don't feel deprived all the time. You don't feel like you're starving all the time. So the way that I personally balance my macros, and the way that a lot of athletic associations, nutrition, that specifically focus on people who are active, they recommend that you get, anywhere between 45 and 65 of your calories from carbohydrates, and then 20, no more than 35% of your calories from protein, and then whatever's left you get from fat. So something in there, you can Google that if you want the exact specifications. I got these numbers from NASM, but I've studied diet books since I was, for the past 20 years. So I've read all the different recommendations. A good one, though, if you are trying to not completely cut out carbohydrates, but you're trying to reduce them so that you get a little bit faster of that look that you're going for, is a 40-30-30 split, which is also great. So that is 40% of your carbohydrates, your calories come from carbohydrates, 30 from protein, 30 from fat. And that one is good because you're getting enough from fat that you feel satiated. Because what fat does in your diet is it produces CCK, or cholecystokinin, which is produced in your, after eating fat, it's produced in your intestines, and it signals your brain, okay, we're full, we're good. Which is why the high protein, high fat diets are easier, because you feel so satiated, you're like, I don't really want to eat. But you also don't feel that great. There's even a thing called the keto flu that you have to go through, where your body converts from using glucose into using fat for fuel primarily. It doesn't feel good. I know when I personally have done it, it just seemed counterintuitive if I'm trying to get healthier to put my body through something that makes me feel not well at all. So that was a big factor for me, especially since I'm so active and I want my performance in my everyday exercise, athleticism activities to remain the same. That was a big no from me, even though I have done it in periods of my life where I wasn't exercising heavily, and it was I didn't lose a lot of weight, but I didn't gain any weight either, and I didn't have to think about it. So that one is good if you're sedentary, you aren't working out, you work long hours and you just don't really have time. Doing something with a lower carbohydrate, higher protein, higher fat profile can be really beneficial for those people, because you're not working off all that excess energy that carbohydrates provide. So then you don't run the risk of storing excess either. So that was good for me then, and I didn't feel really, I didn't feel the negative effects of it like I did when I was, in a more active phase. There are a lot of free apps that you can use to track your food intake, and this is where you have to hold yourself accountable. What do you want? Is this something that you really want, that you're willing to make a non-negotiable for yourself? Are you willing to wake up and say, this is how I want to look in 1 year, or very, very close as I can possibly be from my starting point? In 4 years, this is where I want to be. What am I willing to do right now to get myself to that point? So you can either start the process or just continue, and nothing will change because you didn't change anything. All the factors are still the same. So you're still going to look how you look in 1 year, just 1 year older. So if this is a priority for you, I want to feel lighter. I want, studies have shown again and again that chronic disease risk is reduced by reducing our body weight. The longest lived people, the Japanese, they have this rule that I was just reading, the Ikigai, this amazing book, where they only eat until they're 80% full, that's wonderful. And I actually, that was something I started to instill for myself. It was like, if I'm eating to the point where I can't go take a stroll because I'm too uncomfortable, I've eaten too much. It's just too much. So that's not listening to my body. That's not honoring my body and listening to what my body wants to stop. That's me overforcing it. Maybe I'm distracted when I'm eating. Maybe, people are talking to me and I'm not focusing. But if food is a pleasure in my life, I want to slow down, enjoy it, respect the process that goes into it, respect what it does for my body once it gets metabolized, all, the fuel and the energy it gives me, the life and vitality that it gives me. Food is an amazing gift, and it's part of our life, and it's a great pleasure in life. So we don't want to do it mindlessly, we do so many things mindlessly because we are so busy, but this is one that we know causes problems and a reduction in the quality of life if we overdo it, like so many things. So back to tracking your macros. So the best way to do that, get a free app. That's the easiest way, because I don't want to have to sit and think, okay, how many, look it up, how many calories. If you like to write things down and that's a part of your process, and you want to, look up and research or just use the labels on food, you can go for it, But for me, putting in an app, searching the food, learning portion sizes. So get yourself a little, some little quarter cup, little different measurement containers. Some people go as far as to weigh their food. You can do that. I just use measuring devices. And this is usually really good to do at the beginning. Once you've been doing this for a couple of months, it becomes second nature. You know, you read labels, you start to remember what's in, you know, those types of things. What's in a 4 cups of this type of cereal. You know, you definitely start to be more aware and more accountable. And you're like, okay, well, this stray cookie here, this stray, you know, handful of, you know, peanuts here, it all adds up to your total daily intake. So if you're doing it mindlessly, but you have to be held accountable for it in the form of your body, I mean, why do that? You know, you're gonna, it's better to slow down and enjoy what you're going to eat and think about what it does for you. Which is not to say that I eat perfectly clean. I don't. You know, I absolutely don't. I add in things here. I make room for it, you know. The best way to do that is by eating whole foods that are high in fiber and water content. So, because what we like to feel satiated. We like to feel, you know, that comfortable fullness, that, you know, it helps us relax. It does, you know, produce a serotonin. Like after a big meal, you know, we're just like, oh, I'm so content. Well, you can do that with vegetables. You can do that with things that will still provide that fullness, but actually have a much lower calorie impact. So that's what you will start to learn as you start to track the calorie density of food, etc. The biggest thing that I wanted to talk about today, though, was why we yo-yo from fad diets. Why we start off strong and then suddenly we regain what we lost and then some. So why does this happen? Okay, so now we know what all the macronutrients do. Carbohydrates provide energy, fats they actually are precursors to a lot of hormones. They do a lot of things in the body processes, and we also store it later for fuel in a deficit. Like when we can't eat for 8 hours because we're so busy at work, you know, your body will break out the fat, convert it, and turn it into glucose. Protein helps build all of our body structures, especially muscle, which is the biggest thing that we have to focus on when we are weight training, we are exercising, we are being active, especially if we do that and we haven't been active for a long period of time. So that's going to raise our total daily energy expenditure when we start exercising, which is good, especially if we want to create a calorie deficit. The more you move, the more calories you need. But if you're trying to create, you know, deficit between how much you move and the calories that you expend and what you eat, that's the best way to do it. Just move more. And then you're less likely to eat more. Also, you're busy. You're not eating. You're not sitting around. So that's a great thing. And it doesn't have to just be exercising. It can be like cleaning your house, gardening, anything you're doing where you're just moving. I'm burning calories right now, waving my hands around. But when you start exercising, this is a lot of people's mistake. You start exercising, and you're like, I'm gonna eat right. You know, you cut out carbs, or you cut out meat, or whatever. You drastically reduce your calories. Like, I'm only gonna eat lettuce and apples today, and then you start exercising very vigorously. You start making your body do things and have to adapt to what you're doing very quickly. So what will happen is, for a little while, you might be okay, especially while you still have those glycogen stores. You know, after the first week or two of that, you're gonna hit a wall. Your body wants to be at peace with itself. It wants homeostasis. So when you do drastic things like that, your body will send out hormones, make you starving, make you tired, try to shut you down. You'll get pains and aches and things like that. Your body tries to slam on the brakes. So how do we avoid that? Okay, we don't rush into it. We think about it. We prepare. We go, okay, is this really what I want to do? Am I committed to myself? Am I committed to doing this thing that I've wanted, I've thought about for a long time? Am I ready to do it now? And I think a big part of that is letting go of what we think is on the other side. You know, oh, it's gonna be work. Number one, it's gonna be, you know, am I gonna have to do this forever? Am I gonna have to feel hungry? Am I gonna have to, you know, am I gonna be sore and tired? And, you know, do I have to miss out on social occasions? And, you know, can I have a glass of wine? Can I have a beer on the weekend? You know, if you do this right with the right intent, then you can incorporate all of those things in moderation, right? That's what they say. So the key here is to raise the amount of exercise you're doing, lower the amount of calories, but you don't make the difference so drastic that your body freaks out. That's it. So simple. So like I said, 200 to 400 calorie deficit, it's going to take longer to, you know, start seeing a fat loss reduction. I'm not even saying weight loss, because I personally haven't seen a giant difference on the scale, but my body fat percentage is drastically different than it was 6 years ago. So I'm not even big on the scale. So okay, so how do we find a happy place where that we can do it? It's going to take a little trial and error for you. If you are going from never exercising, the only walking you do is to get to and from your car and to and from the fridge and, you know, 50 feet around your house, you're going to have to start off a little bit slower. So you don't need to go drastically into exercising. Reduce your calories, work up into exercising slowly so that your body structures have time to adapt to what you're doing safely. Start walking. Add 10 minutes on every day, every other week, or every week, you know. Okay, I'm gonna start this week with 15 minutes a day. I'm gonna walk. Next week I'm gonna try 25. The following week I'm gonna try 35, and I'm gonna the same pace. And then after that I'm gonna go back down to 25, but I'm gonna walk faster. That types of thing that lets your body adapt while you work on your nutrition first. So that's a big thing, is like, how do you make it easy for yourself to get to healthy foods? Well, number one, you buy those instead of the convenience foods that are highly processed. I personally like to look at a label, and if it has more than 5 ingredients, probably don't want to eat that like in a large amount or on the regular. So, you know, and there's this, the internet is amazing. There's so many recipes all over social media, all over the internet, that are, you know, great ways to cook things that you normally think of as boring. So commit to it, make that part of this learning process, because that's what this whole thing is. It's a process, it's a journey. It's amazing. It's you talking to yourself and you going, who do I want to be? What do I need? What would make me feel good? What would make me in my body feel the best so that I could do those things and the dreaming and all the things that I wanted to do? And if I started with this one thing, how might my outside life change or be better or different? So start playing with recipes. Start seeing what vegetables you like. Start adding a vegetable side to every meal. I mean that, like in the morning, if you're gonna make, you know, your eggs and, you know, scrambled eggs and turkey sausage, have a tomato with it. Have an orange with it. Have, you know, just add the vegetables. Eat those first. Pay your vegetable tax, as I like to say, and just see if that doesn't take up enough space to where you're like, actually, I don't have room for 4 pieces of toast in the morning. I don't have room for, you know, this giant bowl of cereal, or, you know, 5 pancakes, or whatever it is. I don't have room for a foot-long sub for lunch because I had, you know, a salad that I prepared or bought. There's so many convenience foods that are healthy, that are already prepackaged. I mean, there's almost no reason not to anymore. And again, if you start tracking it and counting everything that you put in, then you'll know. You'll start to see, like, lot of the stuff that I thought was healthy or, what have you, because it was convenient, it just isn't. So that is the first thing, is first become aware, educate yourself. So now we know what these things are, we know what they do. Okay, so let's finish this out with why we rebound. So what happens is we take our calories way down and take our energy expenditure way up. We go hard, we're eating super low amounts and we're just exercising, and then our body starts to like freak out a little bit. And what happens is it'll kick our hunger levels back up. So we start to eat more. It'll make us exhausted, so we stop moving so that our body can recover. And those two things will go back to level. But now, especially if you've been in a deficit for a long period of time and you haven't been minding how much what we normally do is we raise our cardio to crazy levels. So what that will do is that will burn fat, yes, but when you're in a deficit, your body will burn anything to get fuel. So your body will also start breaking down in what is known as catabolism. Your body will start to catabolize and break down its own lean muscle mass. It's not discriminating at this point. It's breaking down everything because it needs fuel and you're starving it. So when you come out of a calorie deficit, if you've just been doing crazy cardio and eating only vegetables and juice fasting and this type of thing, you've lost fat, yes, but you've also broken your body down. You've lost lean muscle as well. Lean muscle is an active tissue. So just when you're sitting around, muscle has tone, yes? So you can pinch your arm and you say, oh, okay, like I can tell that that's muscle. Because why? Because it's firm. It has a little bit of tone to it. That muscle, to maintain that constant tone, requires energy. It is active when you're just sitting around. It is. So your body starts breaking that active tissue down as well as your fat. What happens is that active tissue, when you're just resting, is part of what's called your basal metabolic rate, which is your baseline metabolic rate. Like if you just laid in a bed all day, that's your metabolic rate for what you would burn, your calories. And it's all based on how much you weigh, how much lean muscle mass you have, the types of food you're eating, if they like raise your metabolism a little bit, if they take more energy, like fibrous things do to break down. That's all that's based on. You're not moving. It's not based on your exercise. So when you come out of that and your body has broken down some of your lean muscle mass, your metabolism is actually lower than when you went in it. So that resting metabolic rate is lower than when you started. So then you go back to eating at your maintenance calories when actually you should be eating down here now because you've broken down a lot of your muscle that's active tissue that burns calories when you're just sitting around. So your maintenance is now down here, but you go back to eating here because your brain was used to that. So now you're eating in a surplus. So that's why you gain back the weight that you had before and then some, because now your metabolism is lower. You're not burning as many calories, not doing anything. So every time you have one of those crash diet, I'm gonna go crazy for, a month, you break down your body, you freak out your hormones, your body recovers, you slow down, you're like, that was way too hard and crazy and I don't feel good. Well, now you have a lower metabolism than you did before, which is not to say you should never exercise. You just have to do it in the right way with a nice small deficit that doesn't freak your body out. Use that periodization every once a week or every few days when you start to really get real hungry. Take it up to maintenance and then go back down the next day and keep going. But if that whole scenario teaches us anything, it's that what we need to do is increase that lean muscle mass so that when you're just sitting around, you burn more calories for no reason other than you have muscle. So the best thing that you can do is not jump into a crazy cardio routine and drastically reduce calories or, carbohydrates or, anything like that unnecessarily. It's figure out what that ratio is, figure out your total daily energy expenditure. There are plenty of sites that'll help you do that. Your TDEE, you can go calculate your TDEE or BMR, basal metabolic rate, and you can find out, based on your activity level, your job, the normal stuff that you do every day, what your maintenance calories are now. You can just take a little percentage off that. Again, the calculator will help you do that. You can look up macro calculators. The internet, it's amazing. So find out how many calories that percentage deficit would be. If you're going to take off 200 to 400 calories a day, go at it nice and easy. Then increase your energy expenditure. Not too crazy, especially not at first. Build into it so that your body has time to adapt, which can take a couple months because you have to think about your joints and ligaments as well as muscles getting used to doing stuff that it wasn't. Be kind to your body. Give it a chance. I can speak on this. I have hurt myself so many times going way overzealously into so many things. And you will see your body go, okay, we can get rid of this little bit of fat. Okay, I can see starting to adapt to what you're doing, starting to adapt to your exercise. I can see you're giving me enough fuel and nutrients, nutritious food. I can let go of this little bit of fat because that would make that exercise easier for you. I can see that shedding this, these pounds would make that easier because now we're adapting to that. We're not adapting to the sitting around and overeating part, which it already did. So, anyway, long story short, fad diets don't work. They don't work because they really drastically reduce your lean body mass. So what we really want to do is find a nice, small, manageable deficit so that we gently let our body know that we want to shed weight. Take up our energy expenditure slowly, depending on where your starting level is, and build our lean muscle mass. And so this is where I come in. This is where resistance training comes in. There's so many videos on YouTube. You can pick up light dumbbells. You can use things around your house. You can use your body weight to start with, which is one of the best things you can do because you can take it anywhere. Start building the amount of lean muscle mass that you have. That'll raise your metabolism right there. And then when you're actually building, you're burning calories, so that'll raise your metabolism even more. And then that nice deficit then becomes an even bigger deficit, but it's not because you're eating a ton less. It's because you're moving more and you've created this beautiful symbiotic relationship. Now your body's willing to work with you and drop that fat so that you can go, do ladder drills out in a field or box jump or, run 5 miles in the mornings or whatever it is that you want to do. Start from where you are and work from that. And if you guys have any questions about anything I just said, I know that was a lot, please feel free to let me know, comment below. I hope that explained a little bit of the science behind why fad diets don't work and how you actually wreck your metabolism long term by doing that over and over again. Alrighty guys, so keep it real, keep your food fresh, keep your workouts hot, and I will see you guys when I'm cleared to work out again. I love you, miss everyone, and have a great day.